The morning sun cast long shadows across the military training facility as Sarah Martinez adjusted her rifle scope for the third time. She had been preparing for this moment for months, ever since her commanding officer recommended her for the elite marksmanship competition. The range was buzzing with activity as soldiers from different branches gathered to prove their shooting skills. Sarah was one of only 5 women among the 60 participants, but she felt confident in her abilities. She had grown up hunting with her father in the mountains of Colorado, where missing a shot meant going hungry. Her natural talent had been refined through years of military training, and she consistently outperformed her peers in accuracy tests. As she checked her equipment one final time, Sarah noticed a group of high-ranking officers approaching the firing line. Among them was Admiral Peterson, a tall man with silver hair and a stern expression. He was known throughout the military for his traditional views and his belief that certain roles should remain exclusive to men. The Admiral's eyes swept across the range until they settled on Sarah. His gaze lingered on her rifle, a custom-modified weapon that she had personally adjusted for optimal performance. The rifle was her pride and joy, a tool that had never failed her in combat or competition. Other participants were setting up their positions when Admiral Peterson began his inspection walk. He moved from station to station, examining equipment and offering brief comments to the shooters. Sarah could feel his presence approaching even before she saw him. When he finally reached her position, the Admiral stopped abruptly. His eyes narrowed as he studied her setup, clearly disapproving of something he saw. The conversation around them gradually died down as other soldiers sensed the tension building. Sarah maintained her focus on her rifle preparation, refusing to be intimidated by the Admiral's presence. She'd faced skepticism before and had learned that the best response was always to let her performance speak for itself. Her hands remained steady as she made final adjustments to her scope. The Admiral's expression grew more stern as he watched her work. It was clear that he had something to say, but Sarah continued her preparations with professional composure. She knew that this moment would define not just her performance in the competition, but potentially her entire military career. The morning air was crisp and clear, perfect conditions for long-range shooting. Sarah's breathing was controlled and rhythmic as she prepared for what would become one of the most important confrontations of her life. She had no idea that within minutes everything would change. Around them, other competitors were taking practice shots, the sound of gunfire echoing across the range. Sarah's focus remained absolute, even as she sensed the Admiral's growing agitation. She had learned long ago that confidence and competence were her best weapons against those who doubted her abilities. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test not just Sarah's marksmanship skills, but her determination to prove that excellence knows no gender boundaries in the modern military. Admiral Peterson cleared his throat loudly, drawing attention from nearby competitors. His voice carried the authority of decades in military service as he addressed Sarah directly for the first time. "Soldier, I need to examine your weapon," he announced, extending his hand toward her rifle. "There are regulations about modifications, and I want to ensure everything is within proper specifications." Sarah looked up from her position, meeting the Admiral's gaze with calm professionalism. She knew her rifle was completely within regulations, having been inspected and approved multiple times by range officers. The weapon's modifications were all standard upgrades that enhanced accuracy without violating any military protocols. "Sir, my rifle has been cleared by the range master and my commanding officer," Sarah replied respectfully. "All documentation is available if you would like to review it." The Admiral's jaw tightened at her response. He was clearly not accustomed to having his authority questioned, even politely. Other competitors had stopped their preparations to watch the unfolding confrontation, sensing that something significant was happening. "I said I want to examine the weapon, soldier," Admiral Peterson repeated, his tone growing sharper. "Hand it over immediately." Sarah remained in her shooting position, her hands still properly positioned on her rifle. Years of training had taught her the importance of maintaining control over her weapon at all times. She knew that relinquishing her rifle to someone who was not a certified range officer could be considered a breach of protocol. Tension on the range became palpable, as other participants realized they were witnessing more than a routine equipment inspection. Several junior officers looked uncomfortable, caught between their respect for the Admiral's rank and their recognition that something was wrong with the situation. Sarah's mind raced through her options. She could comply with the Admiral's demand and potentially compromise her position in the competition. Or she could stand her ground and face the consequences of defying a superior officer. Either choice carried significant risks for her military career. "Sir, with respect, I am required to maintain control of my weapon during active range time," Sarah said carefully. "If you have concerns about my equipment, I suggest we follow proper channels through the range safety officer." Admiral Peterson's face reddened at her continued resistance. He stepped closer to her position, his intention to physically take the rifle becoming increasingly clear. The power dynamic was obvious to everyone watching, and Sarah knew that her next actions would define how she would be perceived by her peers and superiors. The other competitors watched in stunned silence as the confrontation escalated. Some felt sympathy for Sarah's position, while others worried about the potential consequences of crossing such a high-ranking officer. The range had become eerily quiet except for the sound of wind across the open field. Sarah's grip on her rifle remained firm and professional. She had trained for years to maintain weapon control under pressure, and she was not about to abandon that training now. Her breathing stayed controlled, even as her heart rate increased with the mounting tension of the situation. Without warning, Admiral Peterson lunged forward and grabbed the barrel of Sarah's rifle with both hands. His sudden movement caught everyone by surprise, including Sarah, who instinctively tightened her grip on the weapon's stock and trigger guard. "I said, give me that rifle," the Admiral shouted, pulling hard on the barrel while Sarah maintained her hold on the rest of the weapon. The struggle was brief but intense, with both parties applying significant force in opposite directions. Sarah's training kicked in automatically. Years of combat preparation had taught her never to allow her weapon to be taken by force, regardless of the circumstances. Her muscle memory engaged, and she used a defensive technique designed to break an attacker's grip on a firearm. In one fluid motion, Sarah twisted her rifle counterclockwise while simultaneously pushing forward with her right hand and pulling back with her left. The maneuver was executed with precision and power, designed to break even the strongest grip through leverage rather than brute force. The Admiral's hands were positioned awkwardly on the rifle barrel, giving him poor leverage against Sarah's defensive technique. As she executed the grip-breaking maneuver, his fingers were forced apart by the mechanical advantage of her movement. Admiral Peterson stumbled backward, clearly shocked by the effectiveness of Sarah's defensive action. His face showed a mixture of surprise, anger, and embarrassment as he realized that his attempt to forcibly take her weapon had failed completely. The watching soldiers were stunned into silence. No one had expected to witness a junior enlisted person successfully resist a physical confrontation with such a high-ranking officer. The implications of what had just happened began to sink in for everyone present. Sarah immediately returned to a proper shooting stance, her rifle now firmly under her control. Her expression remained professional and calm, though her heart was pounding from the adrenaline of the confrontation. She had acted purely on instinct and training, but she knew the situation was far from over. Admiral Peterson straightened his uniform and looked around at the watching faces. His authority had been challenged, and his physical attempt to assert dominance had failed publicly. The embarrassment was evident in his reddened face and rigid posture. "You dare lay hands on a superior officer?" the Admiral demanded, his voice shaking with fury. "I'll have you court-martialed for assault." Sarah remained in her shooting position, her voice steady as she replied, "Sir, I was defending my weapon as trained. Military protocol requires soldiers to maintain control of their firearms at all times during range activities." The range safety officer, who had been observing from a distance, began moving toward the confrontation. Other competitors continued to watch in fascination and concern, unsure whether they should intervene or simply witness whatever happened next. The Admiral's attempt to physically dominate Sarah had backfired spectacularly, and now he faced the challenge of maintaining his authority after being outmaneuvered by someone he clearly considered inferior. The power dynamic had shifted dramatically in just a few seconds. The range safety officer arrived at Sarah's position, just as Admiral Peterson was preparing to escalate the confrontation further. Master Sergeant Williams was a veteran range instructor with over 20 years of experience, managing shooting competitions and resolving conflicts. "What's the situation here?" Williams asked, his authoritative voice cutting through the tension. His eyes quickly assessed the scene, taking in the Admiral's disheveled appearance and Sarah's defensive posture. Admiral Peterson immediately began his version of events. This soldier assaulted me when I attempted to inspect her weapon for safety violations. She needs to be arrested immediately and removed from this competition. Sarah remained silent, knowing that speaking out of turn could worsen her situation. However, she maintained her professional bearing and kept her rifle in a safe position while the range safety officer evaluated the circumstances. Master Sergeant Williams had observed the entire confrontation from his elevated position in the range tower. His job required him to monitor all activities on the firing line, and he had witnessed everything that had transpired between the Admiral and Sarah. Sir, with respect, I observed the entire incident, Williams said carefully. The soldier was following proper weapon safety protocol by maintaining control of her firearm during active range time. Her defensive actions were appropriate when someone attempted to forcibly remove her weapon. The Admiral's face grew even redder at the range safety officer's assessment. He was clearly not accustomed to having his actions questioned by enlisted personnel, regardless of their expertise or authority within their specific domain. Several other competitors had moved closer to observe the confrontation, including some senior officers who were participating in the marksmanship competition. Their presence added another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Are you telling me that this soldier was justified in physically resisting a superior officer? Admiral Peterson demanded, his voice rising with each word. Master Sergeant Williams remained calm and professional. Sir, military regulations are clear about weapon security during range activities. Any unauthorized attempt to remove a firearm from a qualified shooter during active range time is considered a safety violation. Sarah could see that other participants were discussing the situation among themselves. Some appeared supportive of her actions, while others seemed concerned about the potential consequences of defying such a high-ranking officer. The Admiral looked around at the growing crowd of observers, clearly realizing that his public confrontation with Sarah was not proceeding as he had anticipated. His attempt to assert dominance had instead highlighted his unfamiliarity with range safety protocols. This is ridiculous, Admiral Peterson muttered, but his voice lacked the commanding authority he had displayed earlier. The presence of witnesses and the range safety officer's support for Sarah's actions had significantly undermined his position. Master Sergeant Williams maintained his professional demeanor while addressing both parties. If there are concerns about equipment specifications, we can conduct a formal inspection through proper channels after the competition concludes. The suggestion provided a face-saving opportunity for the Admiral to withdraw from the confrontation without completely abandoning his original complaint about Sarah's rifle modifications. Admiral Peterson realized that continuing the confrontation would only further damage his reputation among the watching soldiers. He straightened his uniform one final time and fixed Sarah with a cold stare that promised the matter was far from finished. We'll see how well you perform when it actually matters, soldier, he said with barely contained venom. Let's see if your marksmanship is as impressive as your insubordination. With that parting shot, the Admiral turned and walked away from the firing line, his posture rigid with suppressed anger. The crowd of observers began to disperse, though many continued to glance back at Sarah with expressions ranging from admiration to concern. Master Sergeant Williams remained at Sarah's position for a few more moments. Are you ready to continue with the competition? He asked quietly. Sarah nodded, her composure never having wavered despite the intensity of the confrontation. Yes, Master Sergeant. I'm ready to shoot. The range safety officer smiled slightly at her professionalism. Good. Show them what you can do. As the competition resumed, Sarah focused on her breathing and settled into her shooting stance. The confrontation with Admiral Peterson had actually served to sharpen her concentration rather than distract her. She felt a renewed determination to prove that her skills spoke louder than any prejudice. The first round of shooting began with targets placed at 300 yards. Sarah's rifle felt perfectly balanced in her hands as she acquired her target through the scope. Her breathing slowed to a controlled rhythm as she prepared for her first shot. The shot rang out across the range, and Sarah immediately knew it was perfect. Through her scope, she could see that her bullet had struck the exact center of the target. Around her, other competitors were taking their shots, but Sarah's focus remained absolute. Admiral Peterson had positioned himself near the scoring area where he could observe the results of each shooter. His expression was skeptical as he watched Sarah's performance, clearly hoping she would fail and validate his earlier criticism. Shot after shot, Sarah delivered flawless accuracy. Her groupings were tight and centered, demonstrating the kind of precision that separated elite marksmen from merely competent shooters. Each successful shot seemed to further irritate the Admiral, who had expected her performance to suffer after their confrontation. By the end of the first round, Sarah had achieved a perfect score. Her name moved to the top of the leaderboard, ahead of several male competitors who had years more experience in competitive shooting. The achievement was particularly impressive given the pressure she had been under. Other participants began to take notice of Sarah's exceptional performance. Some approached her between rounds to offer congratulations and express their respect for both her shooting skills and her handling of the earlier confrontation. As the competition progressed to longer distances, Sarah continued to dominate the field. Her 500-yard shots were as precise as her shorter-range shooting, demonstrating a level of skill that could not be dismissed or explained away by luck or favorable conditions. Admiral Peterson's expression grew increasingly sour as Sarah's superiority became undeniable. His attempt to undermine her confidence had clearly backfired, and her performance was making his earlier behavior look even more inappropriate and unprofessional. The final round of the competition featured the most challenging shots at 800 yards in variable wind conditions. Many experienced marksmen struggled with these extreme distance targets, but Sarah approached them with the same calm confidence she had displayed throughout the day. Her final shot was witnessed by everyone on the range, including Admiral Peterson, who watched with obvious reluctance. The bullet struck dead center, completing a perfect score that no other competitor had achieved. The silence that followed was broken by spontaneous applause from other participants. When the final scores were announced, Sarah had not only won the competition, but had set a new range record. Her performance was flawless from beginning to end, demonstrating a level of marksmanship that commanded respect from even her harshest critics. Admiral Peterson was forced to witness the award ceremony, where Sarah received the gold medal for her outstanding performance. His face remained stoic, but the defeat of his prejudiced expectations was evident to everyone present. As Sarah stood on the podium, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. Growing up hunting with her father, enduring skepticism during military training, and facing today's confrontation had all prepared her for this achievement. Master Sergeant Williams presented her award with obvious pride. "Outstanding performance today, soldier. You've shown what dedication and skill can accomplish." After the ceremony, several high-ranking officers approached Sarah to congratulate her and discuss potential opportunities for advanced training and specialized assignments. Her exceptional performance had opened doors that might have remained closed without such a decisive demonstration of her abilities. Admiral Peterson eventually approached her as well, though his congratulations were delivered with obvious reluctance. "Well shot, soldier," he said curtly before walking away without waiting for a response. Sarah's teammates and fellow competitors continued to celebrate her victory long after the official ceremony concluded. Her story spread quickly through the military community, inspiring other women who faced similar challenges and skepticism in their careers. The confrontation that had begun with an attempt to undermine her confidence had instead provided the perfect stage for Sarah to demonstrate her exceptional abilities. Her refusal to be intimidated, combined with her flawless marksmanship, had earned her a reputation that would follow her throughout her military career. In the weeks that followed, Sarah received multiple offers for specialized training programs and elite units that recognized her talents. The incident with Admiral Peterson became a cautionary tale about the importance of judging soldiers by their abilities rather than preconceived notions. Her rifle, the same weapon that Admiral Peterson had tried to take from her, continued to serve her faithfully in competitions and combat situations. It remained a symbol of her determination to succeed, despite the obstacles placed in her path. Years later, Sarah would look back on this day as a turning point in her military career. The moment when she refused to surrender her weapon had led to a demonstration of skill that changed how she was perceived by her peers and superiors. Her name became synonymous with excellence in marksmanship, and her story inspired countless others to pursue their goals despite facing discrimination and doubt. The range where it all happened displayed her record score for years afterward, serving as a reminder that true skill and determination could overcome any challenge.